Leviticus chapter 10, New King James Version. The profane fire of Nadab and Abihu. Then Nadab and Abihu, the son of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire into it, put incense onto it, and offered profane fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. So the fire went out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. And Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord spoke, saying, by those who have come near to me, I must be regarded holy, and before all the people I must be glorified." So Aaron held his peace. Then Moses called Mishael, it's Mishael, and Eleazar, the son of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, "Come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp." So that they went near and carried them by their tunics out of the camp, as Moses had said. And Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar his son, Do not cover your heads, nor tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon the people. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail in the burning which the Lord has kindled. You shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die, for the anointing oil of the Lord is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moses. Conduct prescribed from the priest. Then the Lord spoke to Aaron, saying, Do not drink wine or intoxicating drink, you nor your sons with you. Then you go into the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that you may distinguish between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean, and that you may teach the children of Israel all that statute which the Lord has spoken to them by the hand of Moses. And Moses spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar the Ithamar his son, who were left, Take the grain offering that remains on the offerings made by fire to the Lord, and eat it without leavened bread, the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in a holy place, because it is your due and your son's due of the sanctuary made by fire to the Lord, for so I have been commanded. The beast of the wave offerings and the thigh of the heave offerings you shall eat in a clean place, you, your sons, and your daughters with you, for they are your due, and your sons' due, which you are given for. The sacrifice of peace offerings of the children of Israel, the thigh of the heave offering, and the breast of the wave offering, they shall bring with the offering of the fat made by fire, to offer as a wave offering before the Lord. And it shall be yours and your sons with you by a statute forever, as the Lord has commanded. Then Moses made careful inquiry about the goat of the skin of the sin offering, and there it was burnt up, and he was angry. Then Eleazar the Ithamar, the son of Aaron, who were left, saying, Why have you not eaten the sin offering in a holy place, since it is most holy, and God has given it to you to bear the guilt of the congregation, to make atonement for them before the Lord. See its blood not brought aside the holy place. Indeed, you shall have eaten it in a holy place, as I have commanded. And Aaron said to Moses, Look, this day they have offered their sin offerings, their burnt offerings before the Lord, and such things have befailed me. If I have eaten the sin offerings today, would it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? So then Moses heard that he was content. Chapter 11. Food permitted and forbidden. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying to them, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, These are the animals which you may eat. Among all the animals that are on to the earth, among the animals wherever divided the hoof, having cloven hooves, and chewed the cud, that you may eat. Nevertheless, these you shall not eat. Among these that chew the cud, or those that have cloven hooves, the camel, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves, is unclean to you. The rock, hyrax, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves, is unclean to you. The hare, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves, it is unclean to you. And the swine, though it divides the hoof, having cloven hooves, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcass shall not touch. They are unclean to you. These you may eat. For all that are in the water, whatever is in the water has fins and scales, whatever in the sea or in the rivers, that you may eat. But all that the sea or in the rivers that do not have fins and scales, all that move in the water, and living thing which is in the water, they are an abomination to you. They shall be an abomination to you, and you shall not eat their flesh, but you shall regard their carcass as an abomination, whatever in the waters does not have fins or scales, that shall be an abomination to you. And these you shall regard as an abomination among the birds. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination: the eagle, the vulture, the buzzard, the kit, and the falcon after its kind, and every raven after its kind, the ostrich, the short-haired owl, the seagull, and the hawk after its kind, the little owl, and the fish owl, and the screech owl, the white owl, and the jackdaw, and the heron, vulture, the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe, hoopoe, and the bat. All flying insects that creep onto the all fours shall be an abomination to you, yet these you may eat. Of every flying insect that creeps on the fours, these which have joint legs above their feet, and with which to leap onto the earth, these you may eat. The locust after its kind, and the destroying locust after its kind, and the crickets after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind, but all other flying insects which have 4 feet shall be an abomination to you. Them shall be unclean until evening. Whoever carries parts of the carcass of any of them shall be washing his clothes and be unclean until evening. The carcass of any animal which divides the foot, but is not cloven-hooved, or does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Everyone who touches it shall be unclean, and whatever goes on its paw among the kinds of animals that goes on all fours, those are unclean to you. Whatever touches any such carcass shall be unclean until evening. Whatever carries any such carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. It is unclean to you. These also shall be unclean to you among the creeping thing that creeps onto the earth, the mole and the mouse and all the large lizards after its kind, the gecko and the monitor lizard, the sand reptiles and the sand lizard, and the chameleon. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. Anything on which any of them falls, then they are dead, shall be unclean. Whether it is any item of wood or clothes or skin or sack, whatever item it is, in which any work is done, it must be put in water, and it shall be unclean until evening. Then it shall be clean. Any earthen vessel into which any of them shall fall, you shall break, and whatever is in it shall be unclean. In such a vessel, any edible food upon which water falls becomes unclean, and any drink that may be drunk from it becomes unclean, and everything on which a part of any such carcass falls shall be unclean, whether it is an oven or cooking stove, it shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean to you. Nevertheless, a spring or a cistern in which there is plenty of water shall be clean, but whether touches any such carcass becomes unclean. And if a part of any such carcass falls on any part planting seed which is to be sown, it remains clean. Okay. But if water is put onto the seed, and a part of any such carcass falls onto it, it becomes unclean to you. And if any animal which you may eat dies, he who touches it shall be unclean until evening. He who eats of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. He also who carries its carcass shall be washed his clothes and be unclean until evening. And every creeping thing that creeps onto the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten, whether crawls on its belly, whether goes on a fours, or whether has any feet among all the creeping things that creeps onto the earth, these you shall not eat, for they are an abomination. You shall not make for yourselves abomination with any creeping thing that creeps, nor shall you make yourselves unclean within them, lest you be defiled by them. For I am the Lord your God. You shall therefore consecrate yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am the Lord. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creeping thing that creeps onto the earth, for I am the Lord who brings you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall therefore be holy, for I am the holy. This is the law of the animals and the birds and every living creature that moves into the waters, and of every creature that creeps onto the earth, to distinguish between the unclean and to the clean, and between the animal that may be eaten and the animal that may not be eaten. The ritual after childbirth. Okay. Chapter 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel. Just 1 second. Okay. The ritual after childbirth. And then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a woman has conceived and born a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as if the days of her consummary impurity she shall be unclean. And on the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall then continue in the blood of her purification. 33 days she shall not touch any hollow thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the day of her purification are fulfilled. But if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as if her consummary impurity, and she shall continue in the blood of her purification 66 days. Then the days of her purification are fulfilled. Whether for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring to the priest a lamb of the first year as a burnt offering, and a young pigling or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then he shall offer it before the Lord and make atonement for her, and she shall be clean from the flow of her blood. This is the law of her who has borne a male or female. And if she is not able to bring a lamb, then she may bring 2 turtle doves, 2 young piglings, on as a burnt offering, and the other as a sin offering, so that the priest shall make atonement for her, and she will be clean. The law concerning the leprosy. Chapter 13. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, When a man has on the skin of his body a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot, and it becomes on the skin of his body like a leprous sore, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons, the priest. The priest shall examine the sore and the skin of the body, and the hair on the sore has turned white, and the sore appears to be deeper than the skin of his body. It is leopard's sore. Then the priest shall examine him and pronounce him unclean. But if the bright spot is white onto the skin of his body and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and its hair has not turned white, then the priest shall isolate the one who has the sore 7 days, and the priest shall examine him on the 7th day. And indeed, if the sore appears to be as it was, and the sore has not spread on the skin, then the priest shall isolate him another 7 days. Then the priest shall examine him again on the 7th day, and indeed, if the sore has faded and the sore has not spread onto the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is only a scab, and it shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the scab should be and spread over its skin after he has been seen by the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen by the priest again. And if the priest sees that the scab has indeed spread onto the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is leprosy. Then the leprosy sore is on a person. Then he shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall examine him. And indeed, if the swelling on the skin is white, and it has turned the hair white, and it is a spot of raw flesh in the swelling, it's an old leprosy on the skin of the body. The priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not isolate him, for he is unclean. And if leprosy breaks out all over the skin, and the leprosy covers all the skin of the one who has the sore from his head to his foot, wherever the priest took, then the priest shall consider, and indeed, if the leprosy has covered all of his body, he shall pronounce him clean, who has the sore. It has all turned white. He is clean. But then raw flesh appears unto him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall examine the raw flesh and pronounce him to be unclean, for the raw flesh is unclean. It is leprosy. Or if the raw flesh changes and turns white again, he shall come to the priest, and the priest shall examine him. And indeed, if the sore has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. Who has the sore? He is unclean. He is clean. Who has the sore? He is clean. 18. If the body develops boil in the skin, and it is healed, and if in the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a bright spot, reddish white, then it shall be shown to the priest. And if the priest sees it indeed appears deeper than the skin, and its hair has turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leopard sore, such has broken out of the boil. But if the priest examines it, and indeed there are on white hair in it, and it is not deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the priest shall isolate him 7 days, and if it should at all spread over to the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leopard sore. But if the bright spot stays in one place and has not spread, it is the source of a boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if the body receives a burn or its skin by fire, and the raw flesh of the burn comes a bright spot, reddish white or white, then the priest shall examine it. And indeed, if the hair of the bright spot has turned white, and it appears deeper than the skin, it is leopards broken out in the burn. Therefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is leprosy sore, but if the priest examines it, and indeed there are no white hairs in the bright spot, and it is not deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the priest shall isolate him 7 days, and the priest shall examine him on the 7th day. It has at all spread over to the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leopard sore. But if the bright spot stays in one place and has not spread on the skin, but has faded into it, a swelling from the burn, the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is the scar from the burn. If a man or a woman has sores on his head or onto his beard, then the priest shall examine the sore, and indeed if it appears deeper than the skin, and there is in it thin yellow hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a scaly leprosy on the head or beard. But if the priest examines the scale sore, and indeed it does not appear deeper than the skin, and there is not black hair into it, then the priest shall isolate the one who has the scale 7 days, and on the 7th day the priest shall examine the sore, and indeed if the scale has not spread and there is no yellow hair in it, then the scale does not appear deeper than the skin, and shall shave himself, but the scale has not shave, and the priest shall isolate the one who has the scale another 7 days. On the 7th day the priest shall examine the scale, and indeed if the scale has not spread over to the skin and does not appear deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. He has washed his clothes and be clean. But if the scale should at all spread over to the skin after this cleansing, then the priest shall examine him, and indeed if the scale has spread over the skin, the priest need not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. But if the scale appears to be at a standstill, and there is black hairs grown up into it, the scale has healed, he is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. If a man or a woman has brought spots on the skin of the body, specifically white bright spots, then the priest shall look, and indeed if the bright spots on the skin of the body are dull white into the white spots that grow onto the skin, he is clean. As far as men, those hairs have fallen from his head. He has bald. He is bald, but he is clean. he whose hair has fallen from his forehead, he is bald onto the forehead, but he is clean. And if there is on his head bald head or bald forehead, a reddish white sore, it is leprosy breaking out onto his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest shall examine it, and indeed, if the swelling of the sore is reddish white on his bald head or on his bald forehead, as appearance of leprosy on the skin of the body, he is a leopard man. He is unclean. The priest shall surely pronounce him unclean. His sores on his head. Now the leopard on whom the sore is, his clothes shall be torn and his head bare, and he shall cover his mustache and cry, unclean, unclean. He shall be unclean all the day of he has the sore. He shall be unclean. He is unclean, and he shall dwell alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. The law concerning the leprosy garments. Also, if a garment has a leprosy plague in it, then whether it is a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it is in the wrap or in the woof, W-O-O-F, of the linen or wool, whether in leather or in anything made in leather. And if the plague is greenish or reddish in the garment or in the leather, whether in the wrap or in the woof of any made of leather, it is a leopard's plague, and shall be shown to the priest. The priest shall examine the plague and isolate that which has the plague 7 days, and he shall examine the plague on the 7th day. If the plague has spread in the garment, either in the wrap or in the woof, in the leather or in anything made of leather, the plague is an active leprosy. It is unclean. He shall therefore burn that garment in which is the plague, whether wrap or woof, in wool or in linen or anything of leather, for it is an active leprosy. The garments shall be burnt into the fire. But if the priest examines it, and indeed the plague has not spread into the garment, either into the wrap or into the woof or into anything made of leather, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing in which is the plague, and he shall isolate it another 7 days. Then the priest shall examine the plague after he has been washed, and indeed, if the plague has not changed its color, though the plague has not spread, it is unclean, and you shall burn it into the fire. It continues eating away. whether the damage is outside of the inside. If the priest examines it, and indeed the plague has not faded after washing it, then he shall treat it out of the garment, whether out of the wrap or out of the woof of the or out of the leather. But if it appears again in the garment, either into the wrap or into the woof, or in any made of leather, it is an spreading plague. You shall burn with fire, that in which it is a plague. And if you wash the garment, either wrap in woof, WOOF, or whatever is made in leather, if the plague has disappeared from it, then it shall be washed a second time and shall be clean. This is the law of the leprosy plague in a garment of wool or linen, either in the wrap of the woof or in anything made of leather, to pronounce it's clean, or to pronounce unclean. Chapter 14. The ridicule cleaning, healing leprosy. The ridicule for cleaning healed leprosy. Leopards. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the law of that leopards of the day of this cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall examine him, and indeed if the leprosy is healed into the leopard, then the priest shall command to take for him who is to be cleansed 2 living and clean birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop, and the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it the cedar wood and the scarlet and the hyssop, and the dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water, and he shall sprinkle it 7 times unto him who is to be cleansed from the leprosy, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let living birds loose in the open field. He who is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, shave off his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. After that he shall come into the camp, and shall stay outside of his tent 7 days. But on the 7th day he shall shave all of the hair of his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, all of his hair he shall shave off. He shall wash his clothes, and wash his body into water, and he shall shave, he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, one it's EWE, he lamb of the first year without blemish, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil and grain offerings, and 1 long log of oil. Then the priest who makes him clean shall present the man who is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And the priest shall take 1 male lamb and offer it as a trespass offering, and the log off oil and wave them as wave offerings before the Lord. Then he shall kill the lamb into the place where he kills the sin offerings and the burnt offerings in a holy place, for as the sin offerings is the priest's, so that the trespass offerings it is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offerings, and the priest shall put it on to the tip of the right ear of him who is in to be cleansed, onto the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And on the priest shall take some of the long log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. Then the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in the left hand, and shall sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord, and of the rest of the oil in his hand the priest shall put some on the tip of his right ear of him who is to be cleansed, onto the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put onto the head of him who is to be cleansed, so that the priest shall make atonement for him. Therefore the Lord, then the priest shall be offering the sin offerings, and make atonement for him who is to be cleansed from the unclean. Afterwards he shall kill the burnt offerings, and the priest shall offer the burnt offerings and the grain offerings and the altar, so that the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. But if he is poor and cannot afford it, then he shall take one male lamb as a trespass offering to be waved, to make atonement for him, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves on 2 young pagans, such as he is able to afford, and one shall be a sin offering and the other a burnt offering. He shall bring them to the priest unto the 8th day for the cleansing the door of the tabernacle meeting before the Lord. And to the priest shall take the lamb unto the trespass offering, and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. Then he shall kill the lamb, the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood onto the trespass offering, and put it onto the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, onto the thumb of his right hand, and onto the big toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour some of the oil into his palm, on his on his head. Then the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord, and on the priest shall put some of the oil that is in the hand of the tip of the right ear on him who is in to be cleansed, onto the thumb of the right hand, and onto the big toe of his right foot, onto the place of the blood of the trespass offering. Then the rest of the oil that is into the priest's hand he shall put on the head of him who is to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer of the turtle dove a young pigling, such as he can afford, such as he is able to afford, the one as a sin offering and the another as a burnt offering, with the grain offering, so that the priest shall make atonement for him, who is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of the one who has a leopard sore, who cannot afford the usual cleansing. We're in Leviticus 14, taking a second to get something. Please listen to the music. There you go. Okay, thank you. The law concerning leprosy of the house. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you have come into the land of Canaan, which I have given to you as a possession, and I have put into the leopard's plague in a house into the land of our possession, and he who owns the house comes and tells the priest, saying, it seems to me that there is some plague in this house, then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest goes to examine the plague, that all that is in the house may not be made unclean, and afterwards the priest shall go into examine the house. And he shall examine the plague, and indeed, if the plague is on the wall of the house within grained strikes greenish or reddish, where am I at? Streaks greenish or reddish, which appears to be deeper in the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house into the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days, and the priest shall come again onto the 7th day and look, and indeed, if the plague has spread onto the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which is the plague, and they shall cast them into the unclean place outside of the city, and he shall cause the house to be scrapped inside all around, and the dust that they scrap off they shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. Then they shall take other stones and put them into the place of the house and to those stones, and he shall take other mortar and plaster the house. Now if the plague comes back and breaks out into the house after he has taken away the stones, after he has scrapped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look, and indeed if the plague has spread in the house, it is an act of leprosy into the house, it is unclean, and he shall break down the house and stones, its timber and all the plaster of the house, and he shall carry them outside of the city to an unclean place. Moreover, he who goes into the house at all while it is shut up shall be unclean until evening, and he who lies down into the house shall wash his clothes, and he who eats in the house shall wash his clothes. But if the priest comes in and examines it, and indeed the plague has not spread into the house after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed, and he shall take it cleanses, and he should cleanse the house, 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. Then he shall kill one of the birds of an earthen vessel, and running water, and he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet, and live bird, and dip them into the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times, and he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and the running water, and the living bird, with the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet. Then he shall let the living bird loose outside of the city in the open field, and make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law of any leprosy sore, and scales for the leopards, see of a garment and a house, for a swelling and a scab and a bright spot to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy. Chapter 15, the law concerning the bodily discharges. Okay. Chapter 15. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when any man has a discharge from the body, his discharge is unclean, and this shall be his unclean in regards to his discharge, whether his body runs with his discharge, or his body is stopped up by his discharge. It is his uncleanness. Every bed is unclean on which he who has the discharge is, and everything on which he sits shall be unclean. And whoever touches his bed shall be washed his clothes and bathe in water, and he and be unclean until evening. He who sits on anything on which he who has the discharge sat shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And he who touches the body of him who has the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. If he who has the discharge spits on him who is clean, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Any saddle on which he who has the discharge rides shall be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until evening. He who carries any of those things shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever the one who has the discharge touches and has not rinsed his hand in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. The vessel of the earth that he who has the discharge touches shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water, and then he who has a discharge is cleansed of his discharge. Then he shall count for himself 7 days, for he is cleansing. Washes his clothes and bathes his body in running water, then he shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take for himself 2 turtle doves or 2 young piglings, and come before the Lord to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and give them to the priest. Then the priest shall offer them to one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, so that the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord because of his discharge. If any man has an emission of semen, then he shall wash all of his body in water and be unclean until evening. And any garment and any leather onto which there is semen in it shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening. Also, when a woman lies with a man and there is a semen of semen, they shall bathe in water and be unclean until evening. If a woman has a discharge, and the discharge from her body is blood, she shall be set apart 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean until evening. Everything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything that she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches her bed shall be wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever touches anything that she sat on shall be wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. If anything is on her bed or on anything on which she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until evening. And if any man lies with her at all, so that her impurity is on him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days other than the time of her customary impurity, or if it runs beyond her usual time and impurity, all the days of her discharge shall be as the days of her customary impurity. She shall be unclean. Every bed on which she lies all the days of her discharge shall be to her as the bed of her impurity, and whatever she sits on shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her impurity. Whoever touches those things shall be unclean. He shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, then she shall count for herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take for herself 2 turtle doves on 2 young piglings, and bring them to the priest of the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then the priest shall offer the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her before the Lord of the discharge of her uncleanness. Thus you shall separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, and they die in their uncleanness. Then they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of one who has a discharge, and from him who emits semen and is unclean thereby, and for her who is indisposed because of her customary impurity, and for one who has a discharge, either man or woman, and for him who lies with her who is unclean. Chapter 16. The Day of Atonement. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, the Day of Atonement. Chapter 16. Now the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron your brother, no, not to come at just as a time into the holy place, and said the veil before the mercy seat, which is on to the ark, lest he die. For I will appear to the cloud above to the mercy seat. Thus Aaron shall come into the holy place with the blood of the young bull as the sin offering, and of a ram as a burnt offering. He shall put the holy linen tunic and the linen trousers onto his body, and he shall be girded with a linen sash, and with the linen turban he shall be attired. These are the holy garments. These, therefore, he shall wash his body in water and put them on, and he shall take from the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of a goat as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself, and makes atonement for himself and for his house. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats one lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. Okay. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell, and offer it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it, and to let it go as a scapegoat into the wilderness. And Aaron shall bring the bull unto the sin offering which is unto himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house, and shall kill the bull as the sin offering which is for himself. Then he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from the altar before the Lord, with his hands full of sweet incense between fine and burning incense, burning it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense onto the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is unto the testimony, lest he die. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it onto the finger of the mercy seat onto the east side, and before the mercy seat he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering which is for the people, bringing it blood inside the veil. Do with the blood as he did with the blood onto the bull, and sprinkle it onto the mercy seat and before the mercy seat. So he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgression, for all their sins. And so that he shall do for the tabernacle of meeting which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. There shall be no man into the tabernacle of meeting when he goes into the make atonement into the holy place until he had come out, that he may make atonement for himself, for he is household, for his household, and for all of the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord, and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood for the bull and for some of the blood of the goat, and put it onto the horn of the altar of all around. Then he shall sprinkle some of the blood onto it, which his finger 7 times, cleanse it and consecrate it from the uncleanliness of the children of Israel. And then he shall make an end of anointing for the holy place, that tabernacle of meeting, and the altar. He shall bring the live goat. Aaron shall lay both of his hands onto the head of the live goat, confess over to all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgression concerning their sins. Put them onto the head of the goat, and shall send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a suitable man. The goat shall bear on itself at their iniquity until iniquities to an uninhabitable land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness. Then Aaron shall come into the tabernacle of meeting, shall take off the linen garments which he put on when he went into the holy place, and shall leave them there. And he shall wash his body with water into the holy place, put on the garments, come out and offer the burnt offering and the burnt offerings of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people, The fat of the sin offerings shall be burned on the altar, and he who releases the goats as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp. The bull for the sin offering and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought into the make atonement into the holy place, shall be carried outside of the camp, and they shall burn the fire their skin, their flesh, and their offal. Then he who burns them shall wash their clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp. This shall be a statute forever. For you, in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your soul and do not work at all, whether a native or your own country, or your stranger who dwells among you. For on the day of priests shall make atonement unto you to clean you, that you may not clean from all your sins before the Lord into the Sabbath of the Solomon rest unto you, and you shall afflict your soul into its statute forever. And the priest who is anointed and consecrated to minister, a priest in his father's place, shall make atonement and put on the linen clothes, the holy garments. Then he shall make atonement of the holy sanctuary, and he shall make atonement for the tabernacle of meeting and for the altar, and he shall make an atonement for the priest and for all of the people of the assembly. This shall be an everlasting statute for you, to make an atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Chapter 17. The sanctuary of blood. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron to his son, and to all the children of Israel, and say to them, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Whatever man of the house of Israel who kills an ox or a lamb or goat, or the lamb of, or the camp, or who kills it outside of the camp, and does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, to offer an offering to the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord, the guilt of blood shed shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people, to the end that the children of Israel may bring their sacrifices which they offer to the open field, that they may bring them to the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and to the priest, and offer them to the peace offerings to the Lord. And the priest shall sprinkle the blood onto the altar of the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and burn the fat of a sweet aroma to the Lord. They shall no more after their sanctuaries to demon. They shall no more offer their sacrifices to demons after whom they have played the harlot. This shall be a statute forever from them throughout their generations. Also you shall say to them, Whatever man of the house of Israel, or of what stranger who dwells among you, who offers a burnt offering, a sacrifice, and does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting to offer to the Lord, that man shall be cut off from among his people. And whatever man of the house of Israel, or of the stranger who dwells among you, who eats any blood I will set my face against that person who eats blood, and will cut him off from among the people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given to you upon the altar to make atonement for your soul, for it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, no one among you shall eat blood, nor shall any stranger who dwells among you eat blood. Whatever man of the children of Israel, or of the stranger who dwells among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour out his blood or cover it with dust, for it is the life of the flesh. Its blood sustains its life. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, you shall not eat of the blood of any flesh, from the life of it. All the flesh is in the blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off, and every person who eats that died naturally, or what was torn, be beat by a beast, whether he is a native or of your own country or a stranger, he shall both wash his clothes and bathe in water, and he unclean until evening. Then he shall be clean. But if he does not wash them or bathe his body, then he shall bear his guilt. Chapter 18. The law of sexual immorality. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and saying to them, I am the Lord your God, who according to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwell, where you dwell not do, and accordingly to the doings of the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. You shall not do, nor shall you walk in their ordinance. You shall not observe my judgments, and keep my ordinance to walk in them. I am the Lord your God, who shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man does, he shall live by them. I am the Lord. None of you shall approach anyone who is near of kin to him, to uncover his nakedness. I am the Lord. The nakedness of your father, or the nakedness of your mother, you shall not uncover. She is your mother, and you shall not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife you shall not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father, of the daughters of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere, their nakedness you shall not uncover. The nakedness of your son and daughter of your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you shall not uncover, for theirs is your own nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife, daughter, begotten by your father, she is your sister. You shall not uncover the nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is near of kin to your father. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is near of kin to your mother. You shall not uncover your nakedness of your father's brother. You shall not approach his wife. She is your aunt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughters-in-law. She is your son's wife. You shall not uncover the nakedness of her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. They are near of kin to you. It is wickedness. Nor shall you take a woman as a rival, rival, to her sister to uncover her nakedness while the other is alive. Also, you shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is in her customary impurity. Moreover, she shall not lie carnally with your neighbor's wife to defile herself with her. And you shall not let any of your descendants pass through the fire of Molech, nor shall you profane the name of the Lord your God. You shall not lie with a male as within a woman. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Nor shall you mate with an animal to defile yourself with it, nor shall any animal stand before any animal to mate with it. It is perverse. Do not defile yourself with any of these things. By all these, the nation of defiled, which I am casting out before you, for the land is defiled. Therefore I visit the punishment of its iniquity upon it, and the land vomits out of the inhabitants. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and you shall not commit any of these abominations, whether any of your own nation or any stranger who dwells among you, for all this abomination. The men of the land have done who were before you, and thus the land of defiled. Let the land vomit you out of also when you defile it, as it vomited out of the nation that there before you. For whoever commits any of these abominations, the person who commits them shall be cut off from among the people. Therefore you shall keep my ordinances, so that you do not commit any of these abominations, custom which there committed before you, and that you do not defile yourselves by them. I am the Lord your God. Chapter 19. Moral and criminal laws. I think where that to go. Okay, I'm going to take a... Please listen to the music for just a moment. Chapter 19. The moral and criminal laws. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying to them, You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Every one of you shall revere, revere, his mother and his father, and keep his Sabbath. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols, nor make for yourselves molded gods. I am the Lord your God. And if you offer a sacrifice to the peace offerings of the Lord, you shall offer it to one of your own free will. It shall be eaten the same day you offer it, and on the next day, and if any remains until that third day, it shall be burned in the fire. And if it is eaten at all on the third day, it is an abomination. It shall not be accepted. Therefore, anyone who eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the hollow of fearing of the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from the people. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the wholly. It's WHOLLY. Reap the conneers of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, and you shall not and you shall not glean your vineyards, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not cheat your neighbor, nor rob him. The wages of him who is hired. Okay. It shall not remain with you all night until morning. You shall not curse the deaf, nor put the stumbling block before the blind, but shall fear your God. I am the Lord. You shall not do an injustice to the judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor. Partial. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Partial to the poor. Nor honor the person of the mighty into the righteousness. You shall judge their righteousness. You shall judge their neighbor. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall not surely rebuke your neighbor, and do not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance, nor bear any guilt against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, as I am the Lord. You shall not keep my statutes. You shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your livestock breed with other kind. You shall not sow your field with mixed seed, nor shall a garment of mixed linen and wool come upon you. Whoever lies carnally with a woman who is betrothed to a man as a concubine, and who has not at all been redeemed, nor give her freedom, for this there shall be scourging, but they shall not be put to death. before she was not free, and she shall bring his trespass offering to the Lord to the door at the tabernacle of meeting, a ram as a priest offering. Trespass offering. The priest shall make atonement for him with the ram and the trespass offering before the Lord for his sin which he has committed, and the sin which he has committed shall be forgiven him. Then you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food. Then you shall count their fruit as uncircumcised. 3 years and shall be as uncircumcised to you. It shall not be eaten, but into the 4th year all its fruit shall be holy, a praise to the Lord. And into the 5th year you may eat its fruit, that it may yield to you its increase. I am the Lord your God. You shall not eat anything with the blood, nor shall you practice divination or soothsaying. You shall not shave around the sides of your head, nor shall you disfigure the edges of your beard. You shall not make any cuttings of flesh for the dead, nor tattoos of any markings unto you. I am the Lord. Do not prostitute your daughters to cause her to be a harlot, lest the land fall into harlotry and the land become full of wickedness. You shall keep my Sabbath and reference my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Give no regard to mediums and familiar spirits. Do not speak after them to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. You shall not rise before the gray-headed and horn. I am the Lord your God. You shall not rise before the gray-headed and horner, the presence of an old man, and fear your God. I am the Lord. And if a stranger dwells with you in the land, you shall not mistreat him. The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. You shall not do no injustice to judgment in measurement of length, weight, or volume. You shall not have honest scales, honest wages, and honest ephah, and an honest hin. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe all my statutes and all my judgments, and perform them. I am the Lord. Chapter 20. Penalty of breaking the law. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Again you shall say to the children of Israel, whoever of the children of Israel, of the strangers who dwell in Israel, who gives any of his descendants to Melech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I set my face against that man and will cut him off from the people, because he has given some of his descendants to Melech, to defile my sanctuary and profane my holy name. And if the people of the land should in any way hide their eyes from the men when he gives some of his descendants to Melech, and they do not kill him, then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut him off from the people and all who prostitute themselves with him to commit harlotry with Molech. And the person who returns to Medellin, and the person who returns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off of the people. Consecrate yourself before and be holy, for I am the Lord your God, and you shall keep my statutes and perform them. I am the Lord who sanctifies you. For everyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He has cursed the father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him. The man who commits adultery with another man's wife, he who commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. The man who lies with his father's wife is unclean, his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. If a man lies with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall be put to death. They have committed perversion. Their blood shall be upon them. If a man lies with a male as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. If a man marries a woman and her mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burned with fire. Both he and they that were may be no wickedness among you. If a man mates with an animal, he shall surely be put to death, and you shall kill the animal. If a woman approaches any animal and mates with it, you shall kill the woman and the animal. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them. If a man takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, and sees her nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, it is a wicked thing, and they shall be cut off of the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his guilt. And if a man lies with a woman during her sickness and uncovers her nakedness, he has exposed her flow, and she has covered the flow of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or your father's sister, for that would uncover her near of kin. I lost my place. Near kin, they shall bear their guilt. If a man lies with his uncle's wife, he has uncovered their uncle's nakedness. Of their nakedness, they shall bear their guilt. If a man lies with their uncle's wife, he has uncovered their uncle's nakedness. They shall bear the guilt, their sin. They shall die childless. If a man takes his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless. You shall therefore keep all my statutes and all my judgments and perform them, that the land therefore I am bringing to dwell may not vomit you out, and you shall not walk into the statutes of the nation which I am casting out before you. For they commit all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. But I have said to you, you shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you to possess, and the land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, and has separated you from the peoples. You shall therefore distinguish between clean animals and unclean animals, between unclean birds and unclean, and you shall not make yourselves abomination between or by bird or by any kind of living thing that creeps onto the ground, which I have separated from you as unclean, and you shall be holy to me. For I, the Lord, am a holy, and have separated you from this people, that you should be mine. A man or a woman who is of a medium, or who has familiar spirits, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones, their blood shall be upon them. Chapter 21. Regulations of contact of priests. And the Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests, the son of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for the dead among the people, except from his relatives who are nearest to him, his mother, his father, his sons, his daughters, and his brothers, also his virgin sisters who are near to him, and who has had no husband, for her he may defile himself. Otherwise he shall not defile himself before a chief man among the people, to profound himself. They shall not make any blade place onto their head, nor shall they shave their edge of their birds, nor shall any cuttings in their flesh. They shall be holy to their God, and not profound the name of the Lord their God. For they offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire, and the beast of their God. Therefore they shall be holy. They shall not take a wife who is a harlot or a defiled woman, nor shall they take a woman divorced from her husband. For the priest is holy to his God. Therefore you shall consecrate him, for he offers the bread of your God, and he shall be holy to you. For I, the Lord who sanctify you, am holy. The daughters of any priest, if she profanes herself by playing the harlot, she profanes her father. She shall be burned with fire. He who is the high priest among his brethren, on whose head the anointing oil was poured, and who is consecrated to wear the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor tear his clothes, nor shall he go near any dead body, nor defile himself for his father or his mother, nor shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of God, nor the congregation of the anointing oil of his God is upon him. I, the Lord God. And he shall take a wife in her virginity, a widow, or a divorced woman, or a defiled woman, or a harlot. These he shall not marry, but he shall take a virgin or his own people as wife, nor shall he profane his posterity among the people. For I, the Lord, sanctify him. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron, saying, No man of your descendants in succeeding generations who has any defect, any approach of offering the bread of God, for any man who has a defect shall not approach any man blind or lame, who has not married face or limb too long, a man who has a broken foot, a broken hand, or a hunchback, or a draft, or a man who has a draft in his eye, or eczema, or scab, or is a nutch. No man of the descendant of Aaron the priest who has a defeat shall come near to you others of offerings made by fire. The land with the Lord he has defiled, he shall come upon near to offer the bread of his God. He may eat the bread of his God, both the most holy of the holy. Only he shall not go near to the veil of approach the altar, because he has a defect, lest he profane my sanctuary. Of I, the Lord, sanctify him. And Moses told it to Aaron and his sons and to all of his children of Israel. 22. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, that they separate themselves from the holy things of the children of Israel, and that they do not profane my holy name, by that they dedicate to me. And I am the Lord, saying to them, Whoever of all your descendants throughout your generations who goes near the holy thing which the children of Israel dedicates to the Lord, while he has uncleanness upon him, that person shall be cut off from the presence. I am the Lord. Whatever man of the descendants of Aaron who is a leopard or has a discharge shall not eat of the holy offerings until he is unclean. And whoever touches anything made unclean by a corpse, or a man who has had an emission of semen, or whoever touches any creeping thing by which he would be made unclean, or any person by whom he would become unclean, whatever his uncleanness may be, that person who has touched any such thing shall be unclean until evening, and he shall not eat the holy offerings until he washes his body with water, and when the sun goes down he shall be clean, and afterwards he may eat the holy offerings, because it is his blood. Whatever dies naturally or is torn by breasts he shall not eat, to defile himself within it. I am the Lord. They shall therefore keep my ordinance, lest they bear sin for it and die thereby, if they profane it. I, the Lord, sanctify them. No outsider shall eat of the holy offering. One who dwells with the priest or a hired servant shall not eat of the holy thing. But if the priest buys a person with his money, he shall eat it. But if a priest buys a person with his money, he shall eat it. And one who is born in his house, may eat his food. If the priest's daughter is married to an outsider, she may not eat of the holy offering. But if the priest's daughter is a widow or a divorced and has not child and has returned to his father's house as in her youth, she may eat of her father's food, but no outsider shall eat of it. And if a man eats the holy offering unintentionally, then he shall restore a holy offering to the priest and add 1/5 of it. They shall not profane the holy offering of the children of Israel, which they offer to the Lord, or hallow them to bear the guilt of trespassing with the eating their holy offerings. For I, the Lord, sanctify them. Offerings accepted and not accepted. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons and all the children of Israel, and saying to them, Whatever man of the house of Israel or of the stranger of Israel who offers his sanctuary from any of his any of his free will offerings which they offer to the Lord as a burnt offering, you shall offer of your own free will a male without blemish from the cattle, from the sheep or from the goat, whether it has a defect, or you shall not offer, for it shall not be acceptable on your behalf. And whoever offers a sacrifice to a peace offering to the Lord to fulfill his vow, or a free will offering from the cattle of the sheep, it must be perfect to be acceptable. There shall be no defect into it. Those that are blind or broken or maimed or have any unsear or eczema or scabs, you shall not offer to the Lord, nor make an offering by fire for them on the altar of the Lord, either a bull or a lamb that has a lamb too long or too short, you may offer as a free will offering, but for a vow it shall not be acceptable. You shall not offer to the Lord what is brushed or cursed or torn or cut, nor shall you make any offerings of them to your land, nor from a foreigner in hand shall you offer any of these as the bread of your God, because their corruption is in them, and defect are in them. They shall not be accepted on your behalf. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, When a bull or a sheep or a goat is burnt, it shall be 7 days within the month, and from the 8th day and thereafter it shall be accepted as a offering made by fire to the Lord. Whether it is a cow or a ewe, do not kill both her or her young on the same day. And when you offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving to the Lord, offer it on your own free will. On the same day it shall be eaten. You shall leave one on it until morning, and I am the Lord. Therefore you shall keep my commandments and perform them. I am the Lord. You shall not profane my holy name, but I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. I am the Lord, who sanctifies you, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt to bring your God. I am the Lord. Feast of the Lord 23. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feast of the Lord which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are the feast, the Sabbath. 6 days you shall work on, be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Solomon. Rest, a holy covenant. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord. It is all your dwellings. The Passover of unleavened bread. These are the feasts of the Lord, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed time on the 14th day of the first month, at twilight, into the Lord's Passover, and on to the 15th day of the same month of the first of unleavened bread. The Lord, the 7th day, and you must eat unleavened bread on the first day. You shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, but you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. For 7 days, the 7th day shall be holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. The feast of first fruits. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and saying to them, When you come into the land which I have given to you, and reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits on your harvest to the presence. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted on your behalf on the day after the Sabbath. The priest shall wave it, and you shall offer on that day when you wave the sheaf a male lamb unto the first year without blemish as a burnt offering to the Lord. It is a grain offering, shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to the Lord for a sweet aroma. And its drink offering shall be of wine, 1/4 of an hin. You shall eat neither bread nor parched grain nor fresh grain until the same day that you have brought any offering to your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generation to all your dwellings. The feast of the week. And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. Count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath, when you shall offer a new grain offering to the Lord. You shall bring from the dwelling 2 wave loaves of 2/10 of an ephah. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. They are the first fruits of the Lord, and you shall offer them with bread. 7 lambs of the first year, without blemish, 1 young bull, 2 rams. They shall be as a burnt offering to the Lord, with their grain offerings and their drink offerings, an offering made by fire for a sweet aroma to the Lord. Then you shall sacrifice the kid of the goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs of the first year as a sacrifice to the peace offerings. The priest shall wave them with the bread of the feast first fruits as a wave offering before the Lord. With the 2 lambs they shall be holy unto the Lord for the priests. And you shall proclaim on the same day that it is a holy covenant to you, and you shall do no customary work unto it. It shall be statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field when you reap, nor shall you gather any gleanings from your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. The first of the trumpets, the feast of the trumpets. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month of this first day of the month you shall have a Sabbath rest, a memorial of blowing the trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work unto it, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. The Day of Atonement. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Also the 10th day of the 7th month shall be the Day of Atonement. It shall be a holy convocation for you. You shall afflict your souls and offer your offerings made by fire to the Lord, and you shall do no work unto the same day, for it is the Day of Atonement, to make atonements for you before the Lord your God. For any persons who is not afflicted into his soul on that same day shall be cut off from his people, and any persons who does any work on that same day, that person I will destroy from among his people. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be to you a Sabbath of Solomon rest, and you shall afflict your souls on the 9th day of the month at evening. From evening to evening you shall celebrate your Sabbath. The first of the tabernacle. The feast of the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of the tabernacle. On the 7th day, the Lord, on the first day, there shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work unto it. For 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. Unto the 8th day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. It is a sacred assembly, and you shall do no customary work unto it. These are the feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire to the Lord, a burnt offering and a grain offering, a sacrifice and a drink offering, everything on its day. Because the Sabbath, besides the Sabbath, the Lord, everything on its day besides the Sabbath, on the Lord, besides your gift, besides all of your vows, and besides all of your free will offerings, which you've given to the Lord, as an 15th day of the 7th month, then you have gathered in to the fruit of the land. You shall keep the feast of the Lord for 7 days. Unto the first day there shall be a Sabbath rest, and on the 8th day a Sabbath rest. And you shall take for yourselves unto the first day the first of the beautiful trees, branches, and palm trees, and the brought of leaves trees, and windows of the brooks, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God. For 7 days you shall keep it as a feast of the Lord. For 7 days into the year it shall be a statute forever into your generation. You shall celebrate it into the 7th month. You shall dwell in both. For the 7th day you all who are native Israelites, who shall dwell into the both. that your generation shall know that I made the children of Israel dwell into the booth. Then I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses declared to the children of Israel the feast of the Lord. Care of the tabernacle lamp. Chapter 24. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring to you pure oil, pressed oil, for the light, to make the lamp burn continually outside of the veil of the testimony. In the tabernacle of meeting, Aaron shall be in charge of it from evening until morning. Therefore the Lord continually, it shall be a statute forever in your generation. He shall be in charge of the lamp onto the pure gold lampstand before the Lord continually. The bread of the tabernacle. And you shall take fine flour and break 12 cakes with it. 2/10 of an ephah shall be in its cake. You shall eat them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, onto the pure gold table before the Lord. And you shall put pure frankincense on each of the rows, that it may be on the bread, onto the memorial of offering made by fire to the Lord. Every Sabbath he shall set into the order before the Lord, continually being taken from the children of Israel by the everlasting covenant. And it shall be at Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat into the holy place, for it is most holy to him, from the offering of the Lord made by fire, by a perpetual statute. The penalty for blaspheming. Now the son of an Israelite woman whose father was an Egyptian went out among the children of Israel, and this is reality woman's son, and a man of Israel fought each other into the camp, and the Israelite woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed, and so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelamith, the daughter of Dilber, the tribe of Dan. Then they put him in custody, that the middle of the Lord might be shown to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take outside the camp him who has cursed, then let all who heard him lay their hand onto his head, and let all the congregation stone him. Then you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, Whoever curses his God shall bear his sin, and whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall certainly stone him, and a stranger as well as him who is born into the land, when he blasphemes the name of the Lord, he shall be put to death. Whoever kills any man shall surely be put to death. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, animal for animal. If a man curses disfiguremently of his neighbor as he has done, as shall it be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, as has caused disfigurement of a man, as shall it be done to him. And whoever kills an animal shall restore it. but whoever kills a man shall be put to death. You shall have the same law for the stranger and for one from your own country, for I am the Lord your God. Then Moses spoke to the children of Israel, and they took outside the camp him who had cursed and stoned him with stones. So the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses. Chapter 25. The Sabbath of the 7th year. And the Lord spoke to Moses unto the mount of Sinai, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and saying to them, Then you come into the land which I have given to you. Then the Lord shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 days you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyards and gather your fruits. But into the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, and Sabbath to the Lord. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. That groans of its own accord. For your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is a year of rest for the land, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you, your male and your female servants, your hired men, and your stranger who dwell with you, for your livestock and the breasts that are in you, your land, and all that it pour shall be your food. The years of Jubilee, and you shall count 7 Sabbaths of your years for yourself. Okay, the year of Jubilee, and you shall count 7 Sabbaths of the years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7th Sabbath of the year shall be to you the 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound unto the 10th day of the 7th month, unto the day of the atonement. You shall make the trumpet the sound throughout your land, and you shall consecrate the 15th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all of its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his position, and each of you shall return to his family. That 15 years shall be a jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap that grow of its own accord, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is the Jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its produce from the field. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his possession, and if you sell anything to your neighbor to buy from your neighbor's hand, you shall not oppress one another according to the number of the years afflicted in Jubilee shall buy from the neighbor, and according to the number of the years for crop he shall sell to you. According to the multitude of years you shall increase its price, and according to the fewer number of years you shall diminish its price, for he sells to you according to the number of its years to the crop. Therefore you shall not oppress one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. Provisions for the Sabbath year. Provisions for the 7th year. So you shall observe my statutes and keep my judgments and perform them, and you will dwell into the land in safety. Then the land will yield the fruit, and you will eat your full, and dwell there in safety. And if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year, since we shall not sow nor gather in our produce. Then I will command my blessing unto you into the 6th year, and it will bring forth produce 8 for 3 years, and you shall sow into the 8th year, and eat old produce until the ninth year, until the produce comes into you, shall eat of the old harvest. Redemption of property. The land shall not be sold prematurely, for the land is mine. You and your strangers and your sojourners within me, and in all the land of your possession you shall great redemption unto the land. If one of your brethren becomes poor and has sold some of his possessions, and if his redeemed relative comes to redeem it, then he may redeem that his brother sold. Or if the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since it sells, and restore the remainder to them men to whom he has sold it, that they may return to his possessions. But if he is not able to have it restored to himself, then that was sold shall remain to the hand of him who had brought it under the years of Jubilee, and to the Jubilee it shall be restored, and he shall return to his possession. If a man sells his house into a walled city, then he may redeem its will within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year he may redeem it. But if it is not redeemed within the space of the full year, then the house of the walled city shall belong prematurely to him who bought it. Throughout his generation it shall not be released into the Jubilee. However, the house of the village which has not walled around them shall be counted as the field of the country. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released into the Jubilee. Nevertheless, the cities of the Levites and the houses of the cities of their possession, and the Levites may redeem any of their times. And if a man purchases a house from the Levites, and then from the house that it was sold into the city of his possessions shall be released into the Jubilee of his house, in the cities of the Levites are their possessions among the children of Israel, but the fields of the common land of their cities may not be sold, for it is their perpetual opposition. Lending to the poor. If one of your brethren becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, then you shall help him, like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with you. Take no usury in interest for him, but fear your God, that your brethren may live with you. You shall not lend him your money for usury, nor lend him your food at profit. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to be given to the land of the Canaan, and to be your God. The law concerning the slavery. And if one of your brethren who dwells by the becoming poor, and if one of your brethren who dwells by you becoming poor sells himself to you, you shall not compel him to serve as a slave, as a hired servant, as a sojourner. He shall be with you, and shall serve you until the years of Jubilee. And when he shall depart from you, he, his children with him, and shall return to his own family. He shall return to his possessions and to his fathers. For they are my servants, whom I have brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves, and you shall not rule over them with rigor, but you shall fear your God. And as for your male and female slaves, whom you may have from the nations that are around you, from them you may buy male and female slaves. Moreover, any by the children of their strangers who dwell among you, and their families who are with you, which they beget for your lands, and they shall become your property, and you may take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as possession. They shall be your permanent slave. But regarding your brethren, the children of Israel, you shall not rule over one another with rigor. Now, if a sojourner or a stranger close to you becomes rich, and one of your brethren who dwelt in him become poor, and sells himself to your stranger or sojourner close to you, or to a member of the stranger's family, after he is sold by many, be redeemed against one of his brethren, made deemed, or his uncle or his uncle's sons may redeem him, or any one who is near of kin to him, and his family may redeem him, or if he is able to, may redeem himself. Thus he shall reckon with him who brought him. The price of his release shall be according to the number of years. For the years that he will sold himself until the years of Jubilee, it shall be according to the time of hire, 7 for him. If there are still any years remaining according to them, he shall repay the price of his redemption from the money with which he was brought. And if they're redeemed by a few years until the years of Jubilee, then he shall reckon with him, and according to his years he shall repay him to the price of his redemption. He shall be with him as a year hired servant, and he shall not rule with rigor over him in your sight. And if he is not redeemed, and there's years when he shall be released into the years of Jubilee, and he, his children with him. For the children of Israel are servants of me. They are my servants, whom I have brought out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Chapter 26. Promise of blessings and retribution. You shall not make idols for yourselves, neither a carved image of any according pillars small. You shall not make any idols for yourselves, neither a carved image, nor a sacred pillar small you rear up for yourselves, nor shall you set up any engraving stones in the land to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbath and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and keep my command and perform them, then I will give your rain into the season of the land, yield its produce, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Your threshing shall last till the time of vintage, and the vintage shall last until the time of sowing. You shall eat your bread to the full and dwell in your land safety. I will give peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and none will make you afraid. I will ride the land of the evil beast, and the sword will not go throughout your land. You will chase your enemies, and they shall fall by the sword before you. 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 you shall put 10,000s of flight. Your enemies shall fall by the sword before you, for I will look unto you favorably and make you fruitful, multiply you, and confirm my covenant with you. You shall eat the old harvest and clear out the old because of the new. I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not will not harbor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their slave. I have broken the bounds of your yoke and made you walk upright. But if you do not obey me and do not observe all those commandments, and if you despise my statutes of it, your soul harbor my judgments, so that you do not former all my commandments, but break my covenant, I also will do this to you, and I will even appoint terror over you, wasting, disease, and fever, which shall consume the eyes and consume the sorrow of your heart, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. I will set my face against you, and you shall be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you shall resign over you, and you shall flee when one pursues you. And after all this, if you do not obey me, then I will punish you 7 times more than your sins. I will break the pride of your power. I will make your heavens like iron, and your earth like bronze, and your strength shall be spent in its vain. For your land shall not yield its produce, nor shall your trees of the land yield your fruit. Then, if you walk continually to me and are not willing to obey me, I will bring on you 7 times more plagues according to the sin. I will also send wild beasts among you, which shall rob you of your children, destroy your livestock, and make you fewer in number, and your highways shall be desolate. And if by these things you are not reformed by me, but walk accordingly to me, then I also will walk continually to you, and I will punish you yet 7 times for your sins, and I will bring a sword against you that will execute the vengeance of the convent. Then you are gathered together in your cities, and I will spend silence among you, and you shall be delivered into the hand of the enemy. Then I have cut off your supply of bread. 10 women shall break your bread in one oven, and they shall bring back your bread by weight, and you shall eat and not be satisfied. And after all this, if you do not obey me, but walk continually with me, then I also will walk continually with you in fury, and I will chastise you 7 times for your sins. You shall eat the flesh of your son, you shall eat the flesh of your daughters, and I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and cast your carcass on the lifeless form of your idols. And my soul shall harbor you, and I will lay your cities waste, and bring your sanctuaries to desolation, and I will not smell the fragrance of your sweet aroma. I will bring the land to desolation, and your enemies who dwell in it shall be assembled at time, and I will scatter you among the nations, and draw out the sword after you, Your land shall be desolate and your cities waste. Then the Lord shall enjoy the Sabbath as long as it lies desolate and you are in your enemy's land. Then the land shall restore and enjoy its Sabbath. As long as it lies desolate, it shall rest, and the time it did not rest on your Sabbath, then you dwell into it. And as for those of you who are left, I will send fatness into their hearts, into their lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaken leaf shall cause them to flee. Then they shall flee as though fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall. Then no one pursues. They shall stumble over one another as if were before the sword. Then no one pursues. And you shall have no power over standing before your enemies, and you shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up, and those of you who are left shall waste away into their iniquities, into your enemies' land, also in their fathers' iniquities, which are with them, they shall waste away. But if they confess their iniquities and their iniquities of their fathers with their unfatherless, in which they are unfaithful to me, and that they also have walked accountably to me, and that I also have walked continually to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If their uncircumcised hearts are humbled, and they accepted their guilt, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. Then the Lord also shall be lifted empty by them, and they enjoy its Sabbath. While it lies desolate without them, they will accept their guilt because they despise my judgments, and because their souls abhor my statutes. Yet for all that, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away, nor shall I abhor them to utterly destroy them, as a breaking my covenant with them. For I am the Lord their God, but for their sake I will remember the covenant of their innocent ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt into the sight of the nation, that I might be their God, and I am the Lord. These are the statutes of judgment and the law which the Lord has made between himself and the children of Israel on the Mount of Sinai, into the hand of Moses. Chapter 27. Remembering persons of property desiccated to God. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and saying to them, When a man consecrates by a vow certain persons to the Lord according to the volutation, if the volutation of a male from 20 years old up to 60 years old, then your volutation shall be 50 shekels of silver, according to the shekels of the sanctuary. If it is a female, then the volutation shall be 30 shekels. And if from 5 years old up and 20 years old, then your volutation from the male shall be 20 shekels, and from the female 10 shekels. And from a month old up to 5 years old, then your volutation from a male shall be 5 shekels of silver, and from the female your volutation shall be 30 shekels of silver. And if from 60 years old and above, if it is a male, then your volutation shall be between shekels, and from a female 10 shekels. But if he is too poor to pay for valuation, then he shall present himself before the priest, and the priest shall set a value for him according to the ability to him who vowed. The priest shall value him. If it is an animal that men may bring as an offering to the Lord, as anyone who gives to the Lord shall be holy. They shall not substitute it or exchange it, good for bad or bad for good. And if he has all exchanged animals for animals, then both of it and the one exchanged for it shall be holy. If it is an unclean animal, which they do not offer as a sacrifice to the Lord, then he shall present the animal before the priest, and the priest shall set a value of it, whether it is good or bad, or the priest values it, so it shall be. But if he wants at all to remember it, then he must add 1/5 of your value. And then a man dedicates his house to the Lord, and then the priest shall set a value for it, whether it is good or bad. As for the priest values it, so it shall be standing. If he who dedicates his wants and redeems his house, then he must add 1/5 of the money of your value to its land, to it, and it shall be his. If a man dedicates dedicates to the Lord a part of his field or his possession, then your valuation shall be according to sea, for it a armor, a barbly seen small, be valued at 50 shekels of silver. If he dedicates his field from the year of Jubilee according to it, your value it shall stand. But if he dedicates his field after the Jubilee, then the priest shall reckon to him the money due according to the years that remain till the years of Jubilee, and it shall be dedicated from the value. And if he who dedicates the field ever wishes to redeem it, then he must add 1/5 of the money of your value to it. And if it shall belong to him, but he does not want to redeem his field, or if he has sold the field to another man, it shall not be redeemed any more, but the field whom it is redeemed into Jubilee shall be holy unto the Lord as a devoted field. It shall be the possession of the priest. And if a man dedicates to the Lord a field which he has brought, which not the field of his possession, then the priest shall reckon to him and the worth of the value up to the years of Jubilee, and he shall give your value unto that day as a holy offering to the Lord. If the year of Jubilee has field, shall return to him for whom it was brought, to the one who owned the land as a possession, and to all the values shall be accordingly to shekels of sanctuary, 20 gerah to the shekel. But the firstborn of the animal, which should be the Lord's firstborn, not man dedicated, whether it is an ox or a sheep, it is the Lord's, and it is an unclean animal, then he shall redeem it according to the valuation, and shall add 1/5 of it, or it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold according to the value of nations. Nevertheless, no devoted offerings that a man may devote from the Lord. All that he has, both man has passed of the field as a possession, shall be sold for redemption. Every devout offering is most holy to the Lord. No person under the band who may become doomed to destruction among men, shall be redeemed, but shall surely be put to death. And all of the tenth of the land, whether of the seed of the Lord of the land of which the first of the tree is the Lord's, is holy to the Lord. If a man wants at all to redeem any of his tenths, he shall add 1/5 of it, and according to the tenth of the herd of the flock of that every possession under the rod of the tenth shall be hold to the Lord, and he shall not inquire whether it is good or bad, nor shall he exchange it. And if he exchanges it at all, then both it and the one exchanged for it shall be holy. It shall not be redeemed. These are the commandments which the Lord had commanded Moses unto the children of Israel on Mount Sinai. That is the end of Leviticus.